It was the scene where they were showing his statue. Clubber Lang was like, "Hey, woman, you want a real man?"
I was so convinced he was going to be a rock star. I went out and bought.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, if you're a fan of the Rocky movies, then this video is for you. And I'm super excited because what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the Rocky IV soundtrack. And I've got Austin Roy with me today. Austin is a local actor here in St. George, and we're hoping to start doing some more soundtrack shows. And so I said, so we brought him over here and said, hey, why don't you do some soundtrack shows with us? And so he threw out some ideas, and one of them you threw out was talking about Rocky.
Oh, absolutely.
You're an actor.
Yeah.
So what kind of stuff do you do around here, by the way?
Plays in musicals. I've done commercials, film. I've been in TV and like movies. So pretty much everything that you can think of.
We were talking earlier, which was something kind of cool about this. You had a connection with, kind of a distant connection with this movie because of Dolph Lundgren, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned that.
Uh-huh.
That you'd been in a show with him or something?
Yeah. So I was in a movie with him in 2017. It's a zombie movie called...
You were in a zombie
Dead Trigger
movie.
Is what it is.
A zombie movie with Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah.
Dude, that's...
I played the zombie, who was actually like trying to attack him. So it was pretty crazy.
Was it in the theaters? Or was it on like Netflix
I don't think
or something?
It was like in theaters, like here in like America.
Okay.
I think it had, like its run in like Europe. It was on like the Redbox though here, like in America, like back in the day. So.
And what you got a picture of it here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I want to show everybody this.
Yeah, like this is me and Dolph.
So wait a second. So that's you, obviously.
Yeah.
Dude, check that out.
Right. Yep, it's on the set of Dead Trigger.
So anyway, appreciate you coming and being here today because this is this particular soundtrack. I'm old enough that I saw this in the theaters.
Wow.
This came out in '85, and I would have been 16 years old. I actually remember. It's so funny because there's very few movies where I really remember like being there, but I remember being there. I remember I took somebody on a date.
Oof.
Part of the reason this also was important to me is I bought this soundtrack back then. Now I bought it on CD, so I actually had to pick this vinyl up so we could look at it today. Now you're like a real Rocky fan.
Oh yeah.
Like bring that box over here.
Yeah.
Check this out.
So I've got like the original set on VHS.
So you pulled 4 out.
Yeah.
Here, throw that in there so we can see what it looks like.
Yeah.
This is beautiful. For me personally, and I'm actually curious what you guys think about this too. I didn't love 5.
Yeah.
But 3 and 4, I got to 3 and 4, and
Fantastic.
I was just like, I loved. I mean, by the time Rocky 4, I remember being in the theater, and when the thing was over, you could feel during that fight and the whole thing, the electricity in the theater was unbelievable.
I can only imagine, because like I, didn't have the chance.
You weren't even born yet, were you?
No, I wasn't. Like I wasn't born for like another 10 years or something. But I mean, I can only imagine seeing that film for the first time, like in theaters, because the first time that I watched it, like in my grandma's house, right? These tapes are like actually from my grandma's house. So yeah, you heard it here first. Like the first time that like I watched it, I was just, man, like, I think I watched it like 3 or 4 more times after that, right? Like as a 5 or like 6-year-old boy, I was like, Rocky,
yeah.
Right? Like I couldn't get enough.
Now Rocky 4, just so we're all clear about this one, this was the one with the Russian.
Yep.
And this was the one where we had Apollo Creed, and then Ivan Drago was not. What did he? I can't remember. He said something. But anyway, he killed him.
I must break you.
I must break you.
Just like that too, probably.
How tall is the guy when you're standing next to him?
He's super tall.
He's a huge guy.
So he's super tall. I'm 6'3". I think he's 6'5".
Because when you look at this, because Sylvester Stallone is what? Because he's not quite 6 feet, is he?
He's like 5'11". Yeah.
Okay. So they probably have him up on something still to make him even bigger.
Yeah.
But still, he's compared to him, he's a big dude.
Oh yeah.
So, but man, we were talking about this earlier. When you talk about this soundtrack right here and this picture, this is so iconic Rocky.
Oh yeah.
that picture is so amazing. With the American flag, and people are holding him up, and the shorts that he had on.
American flag shorts.
But wasn't that? This is actually interesting because weren't these the shorts that were? That was right. They were Apollo shorts. And so the whole story was, there was this new fighter coming out of Russia, and then they did the fight, and it was in Las Vegas, in the story, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And then that's where Apollo got killed. That's also where we got to see James Brown in the ring.
Oh yeah.
Living in America.
I remember he dropped down from the ceiling, and he was going crazy, and it was a big, dance party for everybody. So. And
it was a little bit of the Rocky 3 thing being relived, where they weren't taking it seriously.
Totally.
And then he gets destroyed in the process.
In the second round.
Yeah, and then anyway, man, I remember watching Apollo Creed, and oh my gosh, again. And I was a teenager. You were a little kid when you saw this for the first time. But that the whole thing when Apollo Creed, when he died. Oh my gosh, because was that the one, or was it with? Okay, because it was the one before where
his trainer.
The trainer. What was? Now I can't even think of the guy's name. Mick. That's right.
Mick's gym, right?
So he died in the one before because Clubber Lang. Banged him or something. They were going up the stairs or something. Ground. That's right, because
Mick
it was
trying to say,
that's right, because he goes, woman, hey, woman.
Yeah.
Was that in that scene? No, that was a different scene.
Yeah. It was the scene where they were showing his statue.
That's right.
And then Clubber Lang was like, hey, woman, you want a real man? Right, yeah. And then Rocky got all fired up. But then, right before they fired. Yeah. It was, right before the fight when,
you're going up some stairs or something.
Yep. And, his trainer, Mick, tried to get into it. And then he kind of shoved Mick to the ground, and it gave him a heart attack. And he died in the locker room right before the fight. And because of that, he got his butt kicked by Clubber Lang as well. And
Rocky is in the ring, thinking about, hey, Mick, where's Mick? I need, and he couldn't concentrate because he's worried about focus. Mick. Yep. And he also wasn't training correctly. And that's kind of the interesting thing about this movie, because it was such a reversal where it's so interesting what he did with the trajectory of these movies. Because it did have that, when you got into Rocky 3, he was too, he'd gone Hollywood. Yep. And so when he was training, they turned it into a circus.
Yeah.
And so then Mick's like, let's get out of here, and
let's go back to the old gym.
And I think he kiss him once or something while he's on the bike, and he reaches over and kisses Mick or something. It was because he wasn't taking it seriously. And
all the girls were trying to kiss him because he had, all these girls.
Oh, that's right.
And all these fans were trying to give him a kiss while he was training.
Yeah.
So
it was so funny the way they
train like that.
So funny. And then, so then he got he was able to kind of deal with Mick's death. He was going to quit fighting, and I married a fighter.
Yeah.
And then she taught. Oh yeah, because then they're running along the beach. We're in the wrong movie, but I'm trying to lead to the fourth one. It was the whole message was the eye of the tiger.
Yep.
The eye of the tiger. You got to get that thing back.
Yeah.
And that was Rocky 3, and then he beats up Mr. T, Clubber Lang. But then what was cool about Rocky 4 is then he figured out a way to step it up.
Yeah.
And this is important because it's at the heart of this whole story, which is part of the soundtrack, which is that new Survivor song, which we're going to talk about in a second. But he actually says that in the thing where he goes, is it man against man? It's East versus West or man against man.
Yep.
And it was almost like they took that energy from 3, where it really was him kind of fighting against himself. But then it became fighting against the other side of the world.
Yep.
And this is the part that's really, a lot of people that watch this channel will understand this. And I wanted to hear from you about this because you'll remember what it was like in the 80s. We kind of forget about it now, but when the Soviet Union was in place, I remember being a little kid, and neither of you would know anything about this. But when I was a little kid and I was in school, I remember doing this thing called duck and cover. And the reason we would do it, we would have these drills, because you had fire drills.
Yeah.
You know, of course, everybody had fire drills before, and they stopped doing these when I was probably 10 or 11 years old, but we had drills of getting under your desk for fear of an atomic weapon.
Seriously.
Duck and cover. Yeah, and we would get under our desks. I want to see if anybody remembers these things.
Yeah.
And the reason was we were basically, as little children, we were being trained to fear the Soviet Union because of potential nuclear attacks. Because this was the arms war.
Crazy.
And this is why this movie at this time, and this is what I mean, neither of you guys would understand this. We had been kind of grown up in this world where the Soviet Union was this enemy,
Wow.
that was on the other side of the world. So when he made this movie, this is what I mean. Like, he was stepping it up to something that so many of us that grew up in that world kind of understood. I'm sure that's those duck and cover drills. I'm sure that's what they were for. I remember them, and I remember hearing about that stuff. Like, we were worried about nuclear warfare, and so when this movie came out, there was this kind of memory of, for all of us that grew up during that time of, and the Soviet Union still existed,
Yeah.
and we were in the middle of Ronald Reagan at that time, and his whole thing was they were this big evil on the other side of the world.
Wow.
That were our adversaries, and so it made this movie even more like hit home in a way that other movies, the previous movies, like this was obvious for them at that point, for him to go from Rocky III to graduate to, okay, now the next enemy is the worldwide enemy. And that's
Wow.
why at the end of the movie, and I'm sure that's the one where he says, I can
Totally.
change, you can change, we can all change.
Totally.
That was this message like, hey, this is crazy that we're trying to fight each other. And because he was reflecting a real feeling
Wow.
that existed in the world at that time that's kind of been lost.
But
we all knew it. We all could feel it back then.
Yeah.
So anyway, so let's talk about this soundtrack, because like I said, I bought this. I bought very, very few soundtracks, but I bought this one. I had it on CD, and I bought it for a couple of reasons. One of them was the Robert Tepper song, and one of them was the Survivor song. So let's start at the beginning and go through this.
Yeah.
So the very first song, Burning Heart. You were talking about this earlier, and so what was the whole point that they brought? Or you were talking about them bringing them back for this?
Yeah. So like Eye of the Tiger, like on the third film was huge, right? It kind of put Rocky on the map, and Sylvester Stallone, who was the star and like the main actor, like the director, he did a million things. So he was going to like be in charge of this film, and he wanted to bring them back. And he said, hey guys, like, is there any way that, like we can make another hit? Because, like I've got a good feeling about this movie. And just like you're saying, like it didn't just involve, like the Rocky series, like they were going to include, like an adversary, like overseas, right? And like our country. So he wanted Survivor to make a huge hit, and that's where we get the song.
Which is
from.
kind of funny because it was almost like, can we strike lightning twice?
Totally.
Because Eye of the Tiger, Henrik, how familiar are you with the song Eye of the Tiger?
Heard it a million times.
See, and you're a kid. You're younger than both of us. But the amazing thing about that is how like iconic that song became. That here we are, literally. I mean, that song came out. What was that? 43 years ago when that song came out, "Eye of the Tiger."
Oh yeah.
And here we are today. I bet my kids all know the song.
Yeah.
And it had that really iconic digga 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 digga. And when you listen to, I can't remember if it was Frankie Sullivan or Jim Pederick, because they were the guys that wrote the song, but they were talking about when they created that. The idea was those were hits. He was watching it, and it was like bam, bam, bam. It was supposed to represent those moments of the striking.
Wow,
But
I
then,
never knew that.
But then, like you said, they wanted Sylvester Stallone's like, can we pull that off again? Like,
Yeah.
can we get these same guys in? Because that was a lucky break for the guys in Survivor anyway. Because
Oh, yeah.
most people had never heard of them prior to that.
Wow.
And they had, I think, 3 albums prior to them doing that song. Now, I got into them so much because of this. I actually went back and you could go back to my record collection. I have all of Survivor's stuff because I fell in love with them after that.
And you have one like right
And
here,
so
right?
I was just going to say, one of the things that I grabbed
that's
was I actually
amazing.
bought. I think I might have bought this one at a recent trip to a record store. I buy multiple copies of things just because. So this is.
That's awesome.
This is, and it's interesting because so they made a whole album out of this just because of this song, and so there's Eye of the Tiger, of course, but this is the Frankie Sullivan right here. He's the guitar player, and then Jim Pederick, he's the keyboard player, and these are the 2 guys that basically wrote all the stuff.
That's
Survivor
incredible.
did. And then this guy right here. Dave Bickler, he was the singer. Now, this is kind of an interesting thing about Survivor. By the way, here's something kind of interesting to note too. Look at that right there. Scotty Brothers.
Whoa.
So they put the soundtrack out on the same label that
same
Survivor
label.
was on.
That's so interesting.
So he Dave Bickler actually left the band after this album and after this song, which made it a little bit interesting because here's Sylvester Stallone going, I want the band back to do another song,
Yeah.
and they'd lost the singer, and so now they've already hired a new singer that's named Jimmy Jamison. And so they're like, so there's got to be this little thing like, are we going to really get the same? We have the same 2
my
songwriters.
goodness. So much trust.
But yeah, now we're bringing in this band again to do the song, but they've got it. But it's kind of a new voice, and like it or not, the voice, when you're talking about listening to music, it's that voice that people connect with, and so now they're going to be so. And by the way, I have that the first song with first album with Jimmy Jamison is right here. This is Vital Signs,
Wow.
and then I'll flip it over here, and then this is Jimmy Jamison right there.
Yes.
So he's the new singer. So when they did Burning Heart, they had actually did it with this new singer, Jimmy Jamison. So if you
Oh, my
hadn't noticed
goodness.
that before, and you listen to Eye of the Tiger, and then listen to Burning Heart, it's different singers, and the change happened
That's
during this
crazy.
period.
That's crazy.
And I became I became such a fan of Survivor, which is weird because so much of the music we do on this channel is heavy metal and hard rock, and yet I had a softer side. I loved Survivor. I don't know what to tell you. And I saw them touring. I don't know if it was on this album or the next one. And they played Eye of the Tiger, of course,
Really?
on tour, and so Jimmy Jamison ended up singing that tune, and
Wow.
later. Anyway, but the song Burning Heart ended up being
Oh my
kind of a
gosh.
big hit.
Yeah. It was number 2 on the Billboard charts, I believe.
Did it get that high?
Number 2.
Oh my gosh.
So, it was, like lightning in a bottle twice because they did it. Number 2 on the charts. That's incredible. With a different singer.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had no idea that it was a different singer. So they did a really good job at covering that up. I didn't know that until a couple of days ago.
Yeah, and Jimmy
So-
Jamison, by the way, was kind of known as being kind of a heavy metal singer.
Totally.
And yet he ended up in Survivor. I can't remember what the band was. Somebody's on the channel is going to know. He was in a band prior to them, and I can't remember what they were called, but he was kind of a hard rock heavy metal singer. And then when he moved into Survivor, it was a little bit more of a, there's a story in my eyes. Everybody knows that song.
Yeah.
I Can't Hold Back, which was just a beautiful tune. And what was the other one on this album? They had a couple of really big hits on here. It was High on You.
Oh, yeah.
Just awesome stuff. The guys were great songwriters, and so it wasn't a surprise that they were able to pull it off again because
Yeah.
they were great songwriters.
Totally.
And anyway, Jimmy Jamison actually passed away some time ago, and so but they amazingly they pulled it off.
Oh my
They
goodness.
actually pulled it off. Now, is the song as iconic as Eye of the Tiger? No. Eye of the Tiger, because Eye of the Tiger is just one of those songs that just 100 years from now, people will probably be doing training videos to that song. But Burning Heart did capture it, because it was those lines we talked about earlier. Is it East versus West or man against man? Like, he really wrote words that were going to represent the movie, what the whole conflict was here.
Oh,
so
totally.
they actually did a great job with that.
Well, and the training sequence in that movie, I'm pretty sure he pushes a car in Russia. So
See,
he obviously had a burning heart, because how the heck do you do that?
that was, and it's so funny that you mentioned that, because one of the things that made that, because in Rocky 3, you had the guy that was training in the gritty gym, and then you had Rocky, who was training in the Vegas showgirls and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
But here they took it even further, where you had Dolph Lundgren, who was the machine, training on the advanced machine, advanced technology.
Yep, and getting all the steroids injected into him.
And then Rocky, that's right. I remember that there was that one shot where he got the needle and it goes up to his face. He's just sitting there. It was a great shot.
Yeah.
But they took him to the opposite extreme, where his training was, I'm running around in the snow. I'm hitting. Yeah, right.
Screaming it from the mountaintop.
Yes. That's right, man.
Yep.
And he's out pushing cars.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, dude, I was so pumped. I wanted to lift weights. I actually was in the gym a lot those days, even though I don't show it.
I want to lift.
Because when you watch that movie and you see him doing those sit-ups and the muscles, you go, dude, how in the world? And
he's
it was
doing sit-ups over a fire.
It was crazy.
If you remember those.
And
scenes.
he's sweaty and every muscles you didn't even know existed. You could see him. It was crazy, man.
Yeah.
That was so awesome. That was so awesome to watch that stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was as ripped as any human being I'd ever seen at that.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
When he
man.
came into the ring, I was like, "Whoa, is that Sylvester Stallone or is that somebody else?" He was jacked.
I mean, it's right.
Yeah.
And for the movie, I mean, he was always in great shape. But by the time they got to this, it was unreal watching him. Because didn't they say I don't know if it was accurate or not, but when they were announcing him, it was he was 188 pounds or something by the time, because he'd lost all body fat.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
He was
wild.
just
So anyway, the soundtrack starts off with that song. Mm-hmm. Great tune, Survivor. They pull it off. Now, then you get into these other tunes where, now Heart on Fire, Hearts on Fire? Yeah. This was, okay. This is funny, because I didn't realize it till I looked at this before we did the show. That was John Cafferty singing this song. Now, do you know where you would have heard of John Cafferty before? You guys would have both probably heard of him in a very, very famous song. Have you seen the movie Eddie and the Cruisers?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
so on the dark side, whoa, yeah, you know that song?
Oh, absolutely.
That's him.
Really?
Yes. So that's the part that threw me. I didn't make that connection that John Cafferty had actually done. This was his. So I don't know if he wrote the song or what. Let's look at that again.
It's John Cafferty and the Beaver Band,
the
right?
Beaver Brown Band.
Yeah,
is that right?
the
John
Beaver
Cafferty,
Brown
Beaver Brown
Band.
Band.
Yeah.
They're the ones that did On the Dark Side.
Wow.
Anyway, so I think he did a few songs in that movie, but that's him. Although he didn't write this song.
Okay.
So, but that's an interesting thing that I didn't realize till we were planning on this show, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. So now we have this next song, which is Double or Nothing. Now, here's the interesting thing about this one, is that we have another. Okay, it's Kenny Loggins.
Yeah.
Singing this song, and he does it with
Gladys Knight.
Gladys Knight. Okay, so Kenny Loggins. Now you're a soundtrack guy. We're talking about movies today.
Yeah.
Kenny Loggins is so funny, because most of the stuff we know Kenny Loggins for is soundtracks.
Oh yeah.
We know him because of soundtracks. And you know,
Iconic.
one of his biggest soundtrack songs that he ever did was from Rocky, not Rocky. was Top Gun.
Top Gun, man. Highway to the Danger Zone,
Highway
man.
to the Danger Zone.
Yeah.
Kenny Loggins. And it's funny
For the
because
movie
for some
soundtrack.
reason I owned this, like I said when I was a kid. I didn't remember it till we looked at it again. Maybe I remembered it at the time. But it's funny that Kenny Loggins, that was kind of his thing.
That's so funny.
We know him for a lot of these soundtrack tunes that he did, and this was another one where he appeared on this soundtrack. So now, then we have on this same side of the record, we have "Eye of the Tiger" again.
Bum, bum, bum.
So they brought the song back for the. Did they play it in the movie? They must have played it in there somewhere.
So I think they played it like in the beginning of the film as they're, like recapping like the third film.
Okay.
Because that, like was the big thing that they would do is they would show you like the end of the fight in the previous film and then they jump into the next one.
That's right.
Like
because
just in
at the
case you
beginning
forgot.
of 2, they run into each other in the hospital.
Yeah.
And then at the beginning of 3, that's right, because at the beginning of 3, they even show him on the Muppet Show.
It's the Muppet Show.
It's the Muppet Show. I remember that.
Yeah.
That was at
And
the
he's
beginning
just
of
beating
3.
the crap out of everybody.
That's right, because they show him going through, and then they was all has-beens or whatever. They were all.
Yeah. They was fixed.
They were.
They was fixed fighters.
Nah, they were good fighters, but they this guy's a killer. He'll knock you into next week, Rock, or something.
You washed up. Them we're fixed fighters, Rock. Them we're fixed fighters. Y'all washed up, boy.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
So anyway, but so that's right. So I remember that at the beginning of 3. So then at the beginning of 4, okay. So then it was a recap of what was on 3. Now at the end of this side of the record, then they moved to this song "War." Now what was it about this? Oh, that's right, Vince Ticola. Hey,
amazing composer.
Okay, so he wrote several songs on here.
Yeah.
And he did the song "War." Now, where do we see war in the movie?
Yeah, so the first time that we see that, it's when Rocky and like Ivan Drago are fighting. It's like in the middle of their fight, like when the announcers are like, "I think there's a war brewing here," right? And they're just beating the crap out of each other. And Rocky, he isn't backing down at all. And that's when they play the song "War" because it's a war fest, right? So.
And isn't that right about that time he like picks him up?
Oh yeah. Body slams Ivan Drago in the middle of the thing.
Dude, if real boxing was like this, wouldn't that be amazing?
Oh, yeah.
It's like he takes all the greatest things about boxing and then adds professional wrestling to it. Yeah. And then adds the music.
Well, and it makes sense because in the third one, who does he like fight for fun? He fights.
Oh, that's right.
He fights what's his name?
Thunder Lips is what they call him.
But it's Hulk Hogan. Yeah.
Baby.
That's right,
baby. Oh my gosh. Is that in the flesh, baby?
In the flesh, baby. Yeah.
And they have him, I think as I recall, they have him on a, because I've actually seen Hulk Hogan in person. He's a huge guy.
Yeah.
But I think he's actually used to be like 6'7" and he's lost a couple of inches or
Holy
something.
cow.
But I think even so in the movie they put him up on a stool because you remember Rocky walks up to him and he's like staring at his chest and, and he
like
says,
7 feet tall.
and he keeps saying like, let's do a, oh yeah, because what does he keep calling Rocky?
Pretty sure he keeps calling him Meatball.
Meatball. That's what it was.
He calls him the ultimate meatball.
The ultimate
male,
meatball.
The ultimate meatball.
That's right. The ultimate male specimen and the ultimate meatball.
We're gonna have to just make a compilation of you guys saying quotes. This is
It
hilarious.
was so great.
He took off his boxing gloves and jumped back into the ring and start beating the crap out of him just with his little white things.
And then doesn't he picks him up and then like
and
tries
body
to throw him,
slams
but he
him.
basically throws him like outside the rope. It's so funny.
Yeah, he barely
because
drops
he
it.
takes him and throws him like six
Yeah.
aisles, and then he's like,
yeah. And then he picks him all the way up, and that was all he can muster. And then he's just kind of like,
just like right over the thing. It's so funny.
So like of course in the fourth one he picks up the Russian, and like body slams him because he's already had practice.
He's done it.
Like he's been there, done that.
He was so great at this stuff too because it was like these little shadows from the previous movies.
Oh yeah.
So funny they did. But anyway, so
body slams.
That was all during the song "War." Now it's interesting because to me, so Vince Nicola wrote a bunch of these songs on here, but these songs have a very 80s sound to them. Yeah, exactly. And we were listening to some of these before we started. And Henrik, what did I say to you? What did I say to you when we were listening to one of these things? Because I hadn't listened to this in a long time. I listened to this when I was a teenager because I actually liked some of this stuff on here, including that song. But what did I say?
You said was this the thing about them kind of sounding like a bad Wham or something?
No. That was a different one. And it wasn't how they sounded, it was how they looked. No. What did I say about, I think it was this one. It was one of these songs where it sounded like
The
Final Countdown.
Oh.
But it hadn't come out yet. Final Countdown.
Well, no, I'm looking at this a million years later, but it's funny because it has that same kind of cheeseball trumpet sound. So he was a great composer, but he really, really leaned into the 80s synth tones.
Oh, for sure.
In these songs.
For sure. Oh, for sure. You know, and like people thought that like the Final Countdown like was in this film too, right?
People had said
like it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. But it was because it had that fake cheeseball trumpet sound. Which was kind of reminiscent of what they did. And I think it was the song War that had that kind of had that kind of sound in there.
Yeah, totally.
So but I'll tell you something. When I was a teenager, I listened to that and I liked that, weirdly. So I actually really love this. And listening to this album on CD was kind of a cool experience because it was, even though it was some cheeseball sounds, it was recorded really, really well.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, that was kind of cool. So then the next thing is this tune, which was "Living in America," and this became a hit too.
Oh yeah.
Amazingly. Because, and actually, I have a little thing in a newspaper here. This is from 1986, and this is some newspaper Palladium item. But check this out: James Brown. As for James Brown making it on the top 100 albums of all time, the Godfather of Soul has also become the second person in history to hit the Billboard charts with 93 singles.
Wow.
That's crazy. That's amazing,
93?
first of all. James Brown is amazing. I mean, I love James Brown, just to begin with. His latest, Living in America from the Rocky IV soundtrack, becoming his 93rd hit single in 28 years. Dude, and James Brown, I mean, come on. Let's be honest here. He was like the greatest.
Energy.
I mean, he there was just something about that dude. He just had this thing about him. He was so great. And we got to see him in this movie because before the fight between Apollo Creed, I was going to say Carl Weathers.
Yeah.
Because I actually, I was first introduced to Carl Weathers in a show called Force 10 from Navarone.
Oh, yeah.
And so I keep thinking of him as Carl Weathers, but I'm not, Apollo Creed.
Yeah.
So before the fight, Apollo Creed and Ivan Drago, we had James Brown comes out, living in America.
And he comes down from the ceiling in Las Vegas.
That's right.
I feel good. Yeah. All the way from the ceiling, and it's this big, like fiasco. And, like Ivan Drago was like, I'm just here to fight.
Like so unimpressed. And yet it was so America. It really was. And part of me just loves that because it's like, that is so America, and I just have to love it.
Oh,
just
my
the
gosh.
Whole over-the-top extravaganza.
All the girls are like dancing like
all
in their,
of it, man.
like red, white, and blue. And it's just,
was
like
great.
I think fireworks are going off too.
It was
like,
pure entertainment.
Yeah.
And even though they were kind of making fun of it a little bit and the excess, it was still just awesome because it was... I mean, because he was just, James Brown is just so awesome.
Oh yeah.
And he nailed that song. And the song, did that song, that was a hit song. I mean, it actually got on, what did they say here? It actually made it into the charts.
Yeah.
So I don't know where it hit in the charts, but it was a hit tune, which is amazing to think about. Again, James Brown, all the successes, and because he'd been in the Blues Brothers just a few years earlier as a preacher or something in that one, wasn't he?
Yeah.
That's the one where he does the flips. Isn't that right?
Yep.
He does the flips up through the thing, and he sees the light. Oh my gosh! But James Brown was so great.
Could do everything, literally. He flips. He comes down from the ceiling. I mean, for crying out loud.
He was so great, man.
Yeah.
James Brown was he had the great voice. And if you watch that old footage of him when he was at the top of his game, he was just awesome. So that was cool.
Yeah.
So but there was one thing interesting about this that was it that song? Okay. Now this is going to be interesting for people watching this channel that didn't realize this. That song was written by a guy named Dan Hartman. Now, do you know who Dan Hartman is?
No.
Okay. Dan Hartman was originally, where most people have heard of him was from a band called the Edgar Winter Group. Now he actually ended up having a solo career, and where he did a song called "I Can Dream About You." I can dream about you if I can't hold you tonight. That's a guy. That's Dan Hartman.
Oh, okay.
And Dan Hartman, he wrote this song with a guy named Charlie Midnight. So anyway,
Wow.
he wrote the song "Living in America"
That's so
with a guy
cool.
named Charlie Midnight, and Charlie Midnight actually helped Dan Hartman. That album, that I just said,
Yeah.
although he didn't help him with that song, he co-wrote most of the songs on that album. This guy Charlie Midnight with Dan Hartman,
Wow.
and there's a song on there called "We Are the Young," which is really cool. That these two guys wrote together, and I don't remember what year that Dan Hartman. I actually have that in the collection, but the song where you would definitely have heard Dan Hartman's voice with the Edgar Winter Group was the song "The Mountain is High, the Valley is Low."
Okay.
What is it? Now I'm drawing a blank on the song. Come on and take a free ride.
Yeah.
That's Dan Hartman. Anyway, so
Okay.
if you didn't know this, because most of the people that watch this channel know that stuff from that era.
Oh yeah.
Dan Hartman, the guy that sang that tune, it was the guy that wrote the song "Living in America."
Wow.
So anyway, that's just kind of a cool little connection right there. Now, we come to the song that I had great expectations for the artist. And it's this one. We were talking a little bit about this before. "No Easy Way Out."
Yep.
So tell us about that tune from this part of the movie, from this movie.
Yeah. So at this part of the film, like Apollo, he just barely passed away in the ring, and they went to his funeral. And, like Rocky is like, man, I have to, like back my friend up, right? I have to fight in his honor. I have to fight the Russian, right? Like there's no other way, right? And so he's just talked to his wife, Adrian, in their house, and he's like, hey, like I have to fight him, and of course his wife from like the previous, like movie as well is like, like I don't want you to fight anymore. Like you're retired, but he keeps saying, I have to do this. He gets into his black Lamborghini. It's like the freaking coolest car that I've ever seen in my entire life. To this
remember
day,
seeing it.
I still want one. It's the coolest car ever. So
I have a friend that actually has a Lamborghini.
nice.
He actually wrote this book. Anyway, he has some nice cars.
Unlock
But
your
by the
potential.
way, yes, the coolest car. Like I remember
Ever.
seeing that on the. I remember seeing that on the screen. Like,
Yep.
dude. And then
Yep, there
we
he goes.
hear.
And like he backs up the car all sassy because him and his wife are in a fight, and he's just driving this whole scene, and all that he can see in his mind, because it's like, like replaying like all of his like memories. All that he keeps seeing is like Apollo falling to the ground and dying over and over in his head, and there's no easy way out, right? And he's just so mad, like he's mad at his wife. He wants to fight this like Russian, and that's just the whole sequence.
It's one of the most amazing scenes in all the Rocky series. Now, I'm about to impress the heck out of everyone here. So, and I said at the beginning when I mentioned that song that I had high hopes for it, because that song, I loved that song so much. The scene was amazing. Yeah. And when I got this on CD, I had this pretty killer stereo system. I actually used to go DJ dances because I had these huge Klipsch Cornwall speakers, which you guys wouldn't know what these were, but they were these big, beefy, had this big amplifier, like 200 watts would pump these things. It was like, it would make noise. Wow. And I had a CD player, and I put that song on, and it was the craziest thing because for those of us that had grown up with records, we didn't understand like how quiet CDs were.
Yeah.
And that song starts out with a snare hit, crack. And when you would put that thing on, you didn't hear it. There was no crackle, 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 crack. It was all of a sudden, bam. And so I had at one point turned up the stereo and had it up really, really loud and didn't realize how loud I had it. And I just forwarded that song and hit play. And then just all of a sudden, bam!
Ooh.
And it was one of the most... And so anyway, then I would use that to scare people after that. Because that song, it was recorded so well.
That's
so here's
sweet.
how I'm about to impress everybody. I was so convinced that he was going to be a rock star and that
No
song...
way, you're not
that
gonna
I
pull
actually-
out a record.
I actually bought... I went out and bought Robert Tepper. This is the one I bought in high school. I bought this album because I thought this guy was going to be a huge rock star. I loved that song so much. So I bought No Easy Way Out, the album that he put out for this. And there it is, the very first song. Now, unfortunately, it just, in my humble opinion, it just wasn't that good. The rest of the album was like, eh.
Oh, really?
I haven't. I listened to it once because I was so excited about it, and then it just. I don't know. It just wasn't. It just was. It just wasn't a great.
He even tried to.
It just wasn't a great song.
Survivor. So like he was going for something.
He was on the same album, with the same
he's
record
on
label
the
and
same
everything.
label.
And yet it just wasn't. I don't know. It just wasn't great. But I actually.
Wow.
This is how nutty I was about buying records back in the day because I actually went out and bought it because I thought.
That's so funny.
I loved that song so much. You know, the visual, the whole thing was so amazing, and that I actually bought his album. But the song to this day though.
Oh my gosh!
As far as soundtracks go, and that moment, cruising down the road, because as you sit in the car, you know the lights, and then keep seeing the shot of Apollo. Yeah, it was amazing. So then
at like the very end of that song. He just sees, you know, like Ivan Drago, and he's just staring at him, you know, like saying, hey, like, I'm going to, you know, like, I'm coming for you next. You know, and that's the perfect, you know, like, sequence into, like, all of, like, the other scenes.
Even though these things weren't critically acclaimed, man, they knew, you could not help, like, in that moment, you could not help but be just, like, pumped.
Oh, my goodness.
You could feel it.
Yeah.
It's great. It was
100%.
great. So then moving on to the rest of this album, there's a few more songs. So then you had, okay, this is the one that I was talking about. The song One Way Street. I got to tell you, that song One Way Street and the Sweetest Victory. So One Way Street was done by this band called Go West. That's the one that I was like, these guys look like a bad version of Wham. And the song was not. I think the song was not good because these tunes here at the end, they leaned into the '80s like music.
Oh, it's totally.
And it was not good. And then the next song, Sweetest Victory, that one also, the band was called Touch. Again, also just really, really, just bad '80s music. Bad '80s music. Then, speaking of bad '80s music, we get to the very last song on the thing, which is the training montage. Now, I'm making fun of it as bad '80s music, but even though it had tons of '80s tones in it, it actually kind of worked with what they did.
Oh, for sure.
It was a little bit like it's easy to make fun of. Because it was so typical training montage, yet it did capture that. I don't know what it was. It was a little bit. It was reminiscent of if they were going to make fun of it in a South Park episode. You know, that kind of style that they had in that, where it felt so almost predictably.
Yeah.
Hey, we're pumping up, we're getting ready. Because isn't that the one that they would have played during the time he was doing the running up the hill and doing the thing? Yeah.
Yep.
So, and I don't remember if that was the one that had where I was talking about it, that had the trumpet sound. If it was in.
Yeah, that's it, man. right
oh my
there.
gosh, dude. It's so funny, man.
Yeah.
But they
Luckily, you know, like they had the.
That's right. That's right.
You know, like if they didn't have those, you know, like undertones, I don't think
That's
it would have
right.
been quite as
I remember how
good.
that thing started. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah,
man.
he is like, I don't even know how they like filmed it, right? But he's like running up all these different mountains, and I think they filmed those scenes in like what's it called? Jackson Hole, like just outside of Jackson Hole, Wyoming, actually. You know, because he's like on like 4 or 5 like different mountain tops in that scene. I believe they filmed most of those scenes in Jackson Hole in the winter. Yeah. So just a fun fact for you.
So speaking of fun facts, the guy that wrote this music, this is Vince DiCola.
Yep.
Now, do you know where he and Sylvester Stallone worked together before this album?
No.
So, or before this soundtrack, he actually did the music for Staying Alive.
Really?
Now, do you know this movie Staying Alive?
Oh, of course.
Okay, because that was the sequel from Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah.
John Travolta, then he becomes like a Broadway dancer.
Yeah.
And I hate to admit it, but I loved that movie.
Oh yeah.
And I think it was either produced or directed by Sylvester Stallone, because
Yeah.
at the beginning of that movie, he has a cameo. And you remember what's happening is John Travolta is like walking down this crowd of people, and then he bumps into somebody. I think he's like in this fur coat, and the dude turns around, and it's Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
That was his cameo in that movie. So this guy, Vince DiCola, had written the music for that soundtrack for that movie,
Yeah.
Staying Alive. So anyway, and then he worked with him again, obviously, on this album. So that's anyway also kind of a fun fact, especially if you ever saw the movie Staying Alive. They had worked together on that movie too. And I actually weirdly, I don't know why I liked that movie so much, but I loved that stupid show,
I can
Staying
dig
Alive.
that movie. Yeah.
It was
dude, it's
so
groovy.
silly. But you know what? Anything with John Travolta in it's going to be kind of cool.
Yeah.
There's something about that guy that was just kind of awesome.
Yeah.
So anyway, this ended up weird. Like I said, this was when you suggested we do this one. I was like, yeah, I can dig that, because I loved this one enough that I bought it, and this helped really turn me on to Survivor, where I ended up going and buying Vital Signs, and then I started buying all their back catalog. Because even though a lot of us had been introduced to them with Eye of the Tiger, that didn't sell me on them other than just the song.
Okay.
It was then when they put out Burning Heart and then Jimmy Jameson, I'm like, I really think I would dig these guys. And then I started going back and buying all their stuff. And then they had another album after Vital Signs called Time. Oh my goodness, I can't think of it. I've got it in the When Seconds Count, and I've got that one in the collection too. I loved Survivor. So this ended up being a really cool soundtrack. Now, one of the things we do on this channel a lot is we'll go dig into some old newspapers and find what people were saying about it at the time. But there was something, rather than read an article, I wanted to just point something out that I think is really fascinating. Well, first of all, there was this one thing where they talk about Survivor, and it happens to be in the same place where I read that thing about James Brown. And it says, Survivor, you won't find a new Survivor song, Burning Heart, from Rocky IV flick on the band's current album, Vital Signs, which is the one I pulled out just a minute ago, but only on the Rocky IV soundtrack. Band members say that's because when they released Eye of the Tiger and it went to number 1, they found they were competing with themselves, because the song was on both their album and the soundtrack to Rocky. And that's the one I pulled out just a minute ago.
What a place to be, right?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
You know, like you're competing like with yourself, you know, in this song that you did on the soundtrack.
You have these two
Holy
albums that
cow.
you wrote, or actually it would have been the Rocky III soundtrack. But yeah, then ended up, and even they look at that, featuring the theme from the motion picture Rocky III. They made that a selling point.
It's incredible.
Obviously, I mean, of course you would.
Yeah.
But so then it goes. But even though Burning Heart has taken off, their Vital Signs album is still having healthy sales. And Vital Signs was I had to do a video on Vital Signs these days because I loved that
So
album.
good.
But here's the interesting thing. And as I was doing research, just looking for, seeing if I could find things about the soundtracks, I found something that to me was almost more interesting. And these are just two examples of it. And this speaks to the power of this music and the power of this soundtrack. So here's one, just a newspaper article from 2001.
Wow.
And it says, Eye of the Tiger, freshman Brandon Lee finds motivation through soundtrack. And look what it says here. What do you do if you're a swimmer? There's no big Hollywood swim movie to turn to. Freshman Brandon Lee of the Olathe East swim team has found his motivation in a bit of an unusual form, the Rocky IV soundtrack. To get me pumped up, I usually listen to music and go over the race in my head, he said. The soundtrack to Rocky IV really gets me going. And this was in 2001.
Wow.
Now, here's an even weirder one. This one's in 2016. Coach's Corner. Meet LHS wrestling head coach Ted Hill. The Laurel Outlook recently spoke to Laurel High School head wrestling coach Ted Hill about his students, his coaching beliefs, and the Rocky IV original motion picture soundtrack
Let's go.
and the impact it has had on the young and developing minds of the LHS wrestlers.
Yeah.
So this guy is using, what do you use to inspire or motivate your athletes? Anything from the Rocky IV soundtrack.
Yes.
I mean, it's fascinating that this actually accomplished that here we are, what is that, 2016,
Oh my goodness.
30 years later, 30 years later, people are turning to this soundtrack as a source of inspiration for athletics.
Well,
And it's unbelievable thinking about that.
you know what song I listen to, right? Like, like before I go on set. Dude, it's the Eye of the Tiger.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Eye of the actor, That's how I do it. So even 40 years later, people are still like listening to that song. I love that song. I swear by that song. So
it is
yeah, it's
amazing
incredible.
what that thing did. And so what I'm hoping to do, for those of you that follow this channel, what I'm hoping to do is start a new series where we talk specifically about soundtracks, and partly because of that very thing. And some of you that watch me do the record openings have seen that I've brought a few in, because soundtracks are their own, it's its own art form.
yeah.
Where you have these people like Sylvester Stallone that's put this movie together, and he has to find the right pieces of music that then create the energy. So where a producer for a band will go through and actually take all the songs that they've recorded for an album and pick a sequence to tell a story, they do a similar thing, but from a different way. They have to find the right artist, they have to find the right music, they have to and put the right thing in the right place. And sometimes, like with Sylvester Stallone, he will find some people like Survivor that he counts on and say, I want you guys to compose songs specifically for this. And then a lot of other soundtracks, it's like, I want, like School of Rock, where they go, you know what we need that Led Zeppelin song.
Yeah.
And then they have to contact these bands because they have these songs that they want to bring in. And so because it's its own art form, and we have so many of these iconic soundtracks that go back into the era that we talk about on this channel, we're hoping to start then a new series where we'll pick some of these soundtracks that had such a massive impact, that had so many classic songs, so many songs that resonated for decades later, that it'd be really cool to make videos where we talk about some of these really, really iconic soundtracks. And this was a good one, I think, to start with.
Oh, yeah.
Because it did have such staying power. And obviously, I mean, you just look at this where you've got these people that decades later, that in many cases, like both of you guys, weren't even born when this came out, and yet it still resonates today.
Yep.
So anyway, final thoughts on this soundtrack. The impact it had, or what, from an artistic standpoint, what this thing did.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It was everything, and it was like a little boy in like the early 2000s. Like, it made me want to, like go outside and like work out. It made me want to box, like it made me like want to become an actor, and it's just, It's one of my favorite albums of all time. It's fantastic, you know, like all of like the artists that are on here, and just, you know, like the vibe that like this album is trying to paint. It just, you know, like precedes like everything else. It's incredible. It's one of my favorites. So
yeah, me too. And that's, like I said, I didn't buy very many soundtracks, but weirdly, I bought the CD for this one.
That's so
and
cool.
Played it over and over again because I just loved the music that was on here. So
that's so
anyway,
cool.
Hey Austin, thanks for being here today and
dude.
taking the time to bring your insight and thoughts about this stuff from somebody that's actually in the world of film and acting. They really appreciate you taking the time to do this today. And also thank you for taking the time to be with us and watch this video. Please leave your comments down below. Do you remember this album? Do you remember the music? Did you see this in the theater like I did? And what was your experience at the end of that movie? Did you have a similar experience to me where you just were like, man, where you felt that movie, you felt the music? Yes, exactly. So please leave that down in the comments. If you're not following the channel already, please follow the channel, like the video, and of course, share this with your friends. We appreciate you when you do that. And with that, have yourself a fantastic day.